I am, quite frankly, very, very frustrated and put out right now. Not just because I've had a lot of technical difficulties behind the scenes. The comic books themselves, especially at Marvel and DC, just aren't helping out. We're heading to the end of the year. I'm about to do my best 10 comic books of the year, my 10 worst comic books of the year. And I'm thinking about, what did Marvel do this year? What did DC do this year? What did the indie comic books do this year? What major events happened? And for the most part, despite there being some really, really good stuff out there, I am at my wit's end. I want to pull my hair out. It's been very, very frustrating. Obviously we had some really terrible things happen in comic books this year. Obviously, the Ed Piskor situation being the absolute worst one. And to see that I don't think anything changed in the end. I don't think the people responsible for that were a part of it learned a single lesson. It felt like a lot of people galvanized around them, like, you know what? You did nothing wrong to drive that man to suicide. You were just doing your damn best without ever verifying any parts of the story and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of people out there did learn lessons, but I don't think the comic book industry itself really learned any lessons. I don't think anything changed there. Just as far as the attitude of comic book creators and the really just destructive nature of a lot of the pros these days. I don't think many of them like comic books. I think they're in comic books to try and get a leg in some other industry. They want to write screenplays or they want to create something for Netflix. And they feel like, comic books are, quite frankly, beneath them. And certainly you and I, the comic book readers, fans of comic books, the customer base around comic books are beneath them. We're a bunch of, hillbillies. We're a bunch of rednecks. We're a bunch of racists, fascists. We're homophobes. We're transphobes. We're a million different names because they think they're so much better than us. And I think that's a lot of the reason that nothing really changes in comic books, especially in the mainstream. Because quite frankly, I don't think they're willing to ever listen to their fans because I think in their minds, they're just so much better than us. And I definitely get that from a lot of people. Not all of them. Obviously, there are some really great people out there that I do think really do appreciate the fans. I do get that impression, certainly from Mark Miller. I certainly get it from Jeremy Adams. I get that impression even from like a Scott Snyder, who I'm not always the biggest fan of, but hey, absolute Batman right now is pretty fucking cool. And there's no denying that. But I think for the most part, we're seen as beneath and less than, and not the desired audience overall. And I think that's too bad. And I think it comes out in the product when you kind of get into it. And, when you think about the current state of comic books, not much getting better, a little bit getting better, especially on the indie scene. But for the most part, it feels like a lot of things got worse, especially if you go to Marvel Comics, the market leader. Where Marvel goes, the comic book industry goes. A healthy Marvel is a healthy comic book industry. And quite frankly, we don't have a healthy Marvel right now. And I don't even know that it's the way that the comic book pros are interacting with people. It feels like most of the Marvel comic book pros up and went to another social media platform, so they can't block you anymore, and they can't kind of talk down to their fans or anything like that, or people supporting the books. So I don't get a whole lot of that really right now, but I do get just the pillar to post unreadable garbage at Marvel. It's really terrible. And I don't understand a lot of fans are like, oh, I think Marvel's not too bad. I'm reading Fantastic Four and I'm reading Ultimate Spider-Man right now, and Marvel feels pretty good. That's because you're reading 2 books. I'm reading 30 to 40 Marvel comic books right now. And it gets almost overwhelming when it comes to the low quality just schlock that they're filling the pages with. It all starts with Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man under Zeb Wells started out not great because of the state of Peter Parker, but there was that Tombstone story, and it went downhill and downhill and downhill, and to the point where Zeb Wells even ruins the Tombstone story. And we got that stupid gang war and dark web. Obviously, that wasn't in 2024. But now we've had the handover from Zeb Wells. We have Joe Casey and Justina Ireland coming on for temporary duty, waiting for the new full-time writer of Amazing Spider-Man, which is rumored to be Justina Ireland. And it's just as bad, if not worse, than when Zeb Wells was writing it. Maybe Nick Lowe's the real problem here. Maybe he's the reason that Spider-Man isn't very good right now. And you need Amazing Spider-Man to be awesome. And if And if Amazing Spider-Man isn't awesome, you need X-Men or Uncanny X-Men or Avengers be awesome. And unfortunately for Marvel right now, none of them are awesome. So you have all this big spotlight on how bad Amazing Spider-Man is right now. And you look at the amount of Spider-Man comic books we're getting. We're probably getting 10 new Spider-Man comic books releasing any given month. That's a pretty good amount. Amazing Spider-Man's not very good. Spectacular Spider-Man isn't very good. The Chasm Curse of Cain isn't very good. A lot of these Spider books are just kind of really bad. Spider Society is really, really terrible. And you get to the point where the best Spider-Man book Marvel's producing right now is Spider-Boy from Dan Slott, and it's not all that good. When it's good, it's really, really enjoyable, and it's a lot of fun. But when it's bad, it's really, really unenjoyable. And you don't want your best Spider-Man book to be Spider-Boy, to be completely honest. And I think it kind of all starts there, but certainly the fall of, X-Men from the Ashes. I almost went to the end of the Krakoan era there, but X-Men from the Ashes reboot under Tom Brevoort, who's supposed to breathe new life into the franchise. And he went out there and found the best talent he could in Jed MacKay writing X-Men, Gail Simone and Uncanny X-Men, Eve Ewing writing the third Pillar book, Exceptional X-Men. X-Force is a kind of a weird book. Phoenix, I just went and read another issue of that one. That book has fallen off dramatically. NYX has been terrible from the beginning. Almost all of it is unreadable. Even the Gail Simone Uncanny X-Men book, which doesn't have like the worst plot. It's not good, but it doesn't have to be terrible. I don't like the Outliers specifically. I think they're terrible. But you almost can't read the book because of her voice for Rogue. She literally sounds retarded, the way that she writes Rogue in the story, and it's an enormous turnoff. And if you haven't noticed, Jed MacKay is a complete fraud. He actually can't write a good comic book. So the two main X-Men books aren't very good. They're crossing over right now, really early on. Nobody seems to give a shit, and I don't blame them. And then the rest of the line is awful. Have you read Dazzler? Find me a worst comic book series of 2024. And guess what? It sounds like we're getting a Dazzler Volume 2 in 2025 from Jason Lowe. You can't make this stuff up. It's unfreaking believable just how bad the X-Men are. I didn't think it could get worse than the Krakoan era. And as Doc always says, you just lack sufficient imagination. And certainly that's proven out to be true. And then, go to the Avengers books. Blood Hunt wasn't good this year. It wasn't terrible. It was readable. But you want your big Avengers vampire crossover event that took over the entire universe for 3 or 4 months to be better than readable. And that's as good as it got. Jed MacKay is just terrible with names. He's got all these stupid tribulation events and the court of whatever and this and that. And it's none of it ever reads really good. And Avengers is a really down book. I decided to come check out the last issue because there's supposed to be an X-Men Avengers fight, complete bait and switch. And they never fought. And almost the entire Avengers line isn't very good. I thought JMS might do well on Captain America. Didn't happen. This new version of Iron Man of Spencer Ackerman is unreadable garbage. We haven't even had an ongoing Black Panther book in quite some time because Eve Ewing ruined that book. Captain Marvel just got canceled because Alyssa Wong was so terrible on it. And really the only thing in the Avengers line that might even be good right now is Incredible Hulk. And if you look at the Marvel lineup of their ongoing books outside of the Ultimate Universe, which we'll talk about here in a second, the two best comic books are Incredible Hulk and Fantastic Four by a wide margin. I don't think Fantastic Four is a great book. Sometimes it's a hoot and it's a lot of fun, but it's very, very uneven. The jokes aren't always good. And anytime that Ryan North tries to do something serious, it doesn't work. And sometimes reading Incredible Hulk comes off as gobbledygook. But I love the art from Nick Klein, but he only illustrates half the issues. The other half of the issues are Danny Earls, who I think might work on his own series, but as the guy following up on Nick Klein, he looks like shit. And I don't think that's his fault. I think that's Marvel's fault. And really the only thing maybe kind of working is the Ultimate Universe led by Ultimate Spider-Man, which is the only book in there I think is even working because you are getting a few things that you actually like. I wish we got more Spider-Man fighting crime, but the Ultimates is a joke book. Ultimate Black Panther is kind of blasé and boring. Ultimate X-Men is not an X-Men book. And you kind of get in a very forgettable line. That's what I was searching for. A very forgettable line of comic books that don't really go anywhere. So you're just sitting there if you're a Marvel fan, and if you don't like variant covers, there's almost nothing there for you. If you're an actual reader, there is very little to actually enjoy at Marvel Comics these days. Fortunately, DC is getting better, but it's not great. It's not DC Rebirth. You know, it's not some of the better times in DC. You know, I would compare right now to Dawn of DC. Some real gems out there to discover, but for the most part, not great across the line. Starting out with Batman. Batman by Chip Zdarsky, awful. I didn't think Batman could get worse than when we were reading Gotham War, the Tini Howard, Chip Zdarsky Batman crossover, including Catwoman. I was like, it will never get worse than this. And as Doc said, you merely lack sufficient imagination, because it is worse. Right now is worse than Gotham War. It's worse than anything that Chip Zdarsky has done in Batman. I don't even know what he's doing. I think he's trying to break the title because he's been forced to leave because Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb are coming in to do Hush 2. It feels like he's mad, so he's going to break the characters on his way out the door. That's what it feels like. He's throwing a hissy fit within the pages of the Batman series, the flagship book of all of DC Comics. Now, at least in 2025, we do have Hush 2 to look forward to, but we will be getting a new ongoing writer. And the rumors that I'm hearing, and I hope they're not true, or at least I hope one of them is not true, is that Dan Waters is going to write it. Very forgettable Destro series. His Batman Dark Pattern came out this week. Kind of weird. He seems to really be in love with body horror. Maybe that works with Batman sometimes, but it's literally the only thing he ever does. The other name that I've heard mentioned is Philip Kennedy Johnson, which I definitely would approve of, because he did take over Batman and Robin recently, and I think he's 3 issues in, and I'm really enjoying it. I think what he's doing in Batman and Robin is actually really good. It's the highlight, really, in all of the Batman books. I think that's the one that's got a lot of potential, and he's doing some things with Damian that I really, really enjoy. But, you know, Detective Comics was terrible basically the entire year under Ram B, and now we've got Tom Taylor. And that first issue seemed pretty good, but after that second issue, I guarantee you I can see where this is going, and it ain't nowhere good. That title's about to go to absolute crap. And, you know, even the ancillary stuff, this new Nightwing from Dan Waters, I don't know, Nightwing giving criminals his beeper to save them from the police, pretty fucking stupid. He was doing that shit before their police were corrupt. It was shown in the comic book. And I just don't think that works for Nightwing. So I'm not really enjoying much of anything in the Batman line outside of Batman and Robin. Thankfully, Superman is kind of in a better state. I'm really enjoying bits and pieces of what Josh Williamson is doing. I thought it started out strong, a little uneven moments. I didn't like the Farman Graph or whatever that stupid, weird Howard Stern in patent leather and a wheelchair, whatever that duo characters are. I don't really like simple Lex that's not smart anymore. I certainly don't like the idea of Lois Lane as Superwoman. But Dan Moore is on the book, and it looks so much better. And I was actually kind of not minding the Lois Lane stuff. I was like, I don't like this, but the way it's being done right here ain't too bad. Unfortunately, this week we did get the Superwoman special, which really just spotlighted every reason why Lois Lane as Superwoman was a really bad idea. You legitimately get Superwoman like on top of a monument or statue, drinking a fucking latte with Lana Lang Superwoman and Supergirl. And you're like, yeah, this is why you shouldn't have done it. There's already too much of this shit. And now they're going to sit around drinking coffee, talking about their periods or something nobody ever wanted in those books. But Superman, not too bad right now. I'm not really reading action. I don't think the Superman Superstar Initiative has really worked. It's a bunch of people just coming in doing short burst stories. I don't think any of them are memorable. They should just bring Philip Kennedy Johnson back. Supposedly, he had a few more years of story to tell after the Warworld saga, but they ended up removing him from the book. I'm told that there's a pretty decent chance we'll eventually get those stories, and hopefully it happens in action. But the sooner they can change that out and actually get a writer in action, the better. But other than that, you know, Power Girl, completely unreadable. I can't believe people are still paying Leah Williams to destroy their comic book universe and characters. At this point, you know, we saw what she did on X-Men. We're seeing what she's doing at DC Comics, and none of it's really good. So, you know, the Superman flagship book's good, but the supporting titles aren't all that great. We just got the Return of the Justice League, or we're getting the Return of the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. I'm not reading that book because it's written by Mark Waid, and fuck that guy, if you know what I'm saying. But all the ancillary stuff coming around Justice League Unlimited, I don't like. Black Lightning and his daughters being the welcoming committee, I don't enjoy. The Question all along the Watchtower was one of the biggest pieces of bullshit comic book I've ever read in my life. It was like 30 pages of a guided tour of the Watchtower, as if I ever fucking wanted to pay to read something that stupid. What else you got? You got the Challenge of the Unknown returning, but they're subordinate to the Justice League. You've got Project Adam coming up in 2025 from John Ridley, one of the worst comic book writers of the modern times, maybe the worst. Certainly very destructive. He's right up there with Tom King when it comes to breaking stuff. And, you know, we hadn't had a Justice League book in 3 years, and this doesn't feel all that great to me. It doesn't feel exciting. I hope it gets some people excited. For me, you know, the other titles, you know, Green Lantern's awesome. That's the best book at DC, and it's one of the 4 best comic books in the entire industry as far as I'm concerned. And I'm certainly looking out for Aquaman. I'm excited for that one. I thought the first issue with Chris Condon on Green Lantern was actually pretty darn good. I thought there were some interesting things going on there. So there are definitely some gems at DC that you can go find that you can't find at Marvel, but similar to Marvel, a lot of their marquee books, the really important heavy hitters, really just aren't carrying their weight right now. And I don't expect Batman to do that until Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee come on. And I don't think Superman's really going to be a stable title, you know, until they get a full-time writer on action. And it sounds like maybe Josh Williamson's going to be leaving Superman soon anyway. We know that they're rebooting to a #1 in the mid part of 2025, along with Batman. I don't really like the concept of Justice League Unlimited. I hate every book that it's touched so far. And there's a lot of stuff that's being tied into that, almost like One World Under Doom. Everything's associated with Justice League Unlimited these days, and it makes for a lot of skippable comic books. You don't need to fully invest in the DC Comics universe. You know, you want to fully invest in Green Lantern. Green Lantern Corps obviously is coming up. You know, go read that Green Arrow book and hope it doesn't tie into that next event. But for the most part, you got to kind of pick and choose your battles at DC, which is better than Marvel. Marvel, you just kind of want to avoid all of it for the most part. Obviously, the Absolute Universe is doing very well sales-wise now, but I don't have good feelings or good juju when it comes to Absolute Superman or Absolute Wonder Woman. I think the concept behind Absolute Wonder Woman, pretty darn good. The art, pretty darn bad. The dialogue and character development, not very good. Absolute Batman, fucking hoot. Not a serious book. Does not take itself seriously. The art from Nick Dragotta is absolutely awesome. If you want to see an absolutely insane, enormous, murderous Batman melting people's feet off with hydrochloric acid or blowing up criminals with bombs and murdering them left and right, and maybe Martha Wayne getting porked by Jim Gordon, I say go and enjoy Absolute Batman. It's actually a lot of fun. Very, very enjoyable. Is it groundbreaking stuff? Absolutely not. Nothing groundbreaking about edgy Batman that goes a little bit too far. Every few years we get a new iteration of this one. You know, he's done something different because he's really big and his Batmobile, well, I almost said it was a Zamboni, but a Zamboni wouldn't be big enough, would it? It's like a dump truck. Kind of weird. You know, he's not supposed to have technology because he's got no money. More technology than anybody. He just, I don't know. He just didn't want him to be rich for some reason. Maybe that upsets Scott Snyder, but that's a fun book. It's enjoyable. It's a good escape. You go and you read that book. Don't think about anything. Just enjoy the wall-to-wall nonsense action that's going on. And it's a lot of fun to be had. And we need more books like that, to be quite frank. You know, I wish Absolute Superman was like that. I wish Absolute Wonder Woman was like that. But it's clear that the Kelly Thompson and Jason Aaron think they're writing the fucking Watchmen or something, instead of realizing that, you know, they're doing the Tick or something ridiculous like that. You have a little bit of fun. Go fucking buck wild on the book. So at least there's some things to read at DC, but really, if you're looking for comic books that are good and you're looking for lots of quality, the only place to go is the indie comic book scene. And the cool thing about the indie scene right now is there's so many universes that are like connected or, you know, conglomerations of books that are just really, really good. And obviously, it starts off with Energon Universe from Skybound. They got the license to Hasbro, obviously prioritizing G.I. Joe and Transformers. We've had Transformers for over 18 issues now. Been a lot of fun. Been a really, really good book. Enjoyed what they've done with Transformers, a complete homage to the Transformers cartoon, taking it in a more serious direction with more long-term consequences on the actions in the book. Really, really good stuff. Josh Williamson comes over, feels completely played out and boring at DC Comics. You put him on Duke, it's awesome. Tom Riley, loved that book. Cobra Commander, pretty darn good book. Scarlet, no, that was actually really bad. Destro, kind of throwaway, average kind of stuff, but now that we've got G.I. Joe #1 and they're connected, it's absolutely awesome. Void Rivals, really, really good book that I don't think enough people are paying attention to, but that one's very, very enjoyable as well. If you like Hot Rod, that's the place you got to go if you want to see that Transformer. And then not to mention that the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero by Larry Hama, fucking chef's kiss. That book is great. It is wall-to-wall action, lots of fun stuff, and it's a continuation of the G.I. Joe Real American Hero series that's been going on for like 3 decades at this point. Larry Hama still got it. And when it's illustrated by Chris Mooneyham, it's one of the best comic books in the entire industry. And when it's not, it's Paul Pelletier as the backup artist. It's pretty darn good anyway. So really enjoying the Energon Universe stuff. You can take some of these older properties and not treat them as a vessel for the message. You could actually treat the property with honor and respect and do something to actually make the fans of that franchise excited, and it works. There's sales associated with it. So I'm really enjoying Energon. Love the stuff they've been doing there. And I think maybe Ghost Machine is even more exciting for me because I think Rook Exodus, despite going on hiatus, and I do think that was a massive mistake, Jeff Johns, Jason Fabok in that book, that's like one of the coolest new books that's come out in a long, long time. It's unfortunate that they're not going to be able to do it as an ongoing series where you get an issue a month. Jason Fabok's work is absolutely spectacular, but he doesn't work quite fast enough to keep up with that pace. I personally wish it would just come out like bi-monthly. You know what I mean? Have it come out every other month. I would rather them do that than take a 6-month hiatus, because I think a 6-month hiatus could mean like the death of interest in the book. People are going to forget that it was even coming out, but I love that book. I think Rook Exodus, very, very exciting stuff. It's going to be very difficult to beat as the #1 comic book in all of 2024, but Ghost Machine has a lot to offer. Really been enjoying Geiger. Stalls out every once in a while, but the Gary Frank art is really good. When they bring in the backup artist, I think it's Paul Pelletier on that one as well. He's very, very good. And the Ghost Machine stuff, led by Jeff Johns, is exciting. I think Red Coat, pretty fun. A lot of jokes in there. You got Albert Einstein doing weird stuff, but I've totally bought into the Simon Pure character. Love me some Brian Hitch, and it's a hoot. Hyde Street, if you want some horror anthology kind of stuff in the vein of like an Ice Cream Man, but that's more connected than Ice Cream Man, you get Ivan fucking Reese along with Jeff Johns. That's a lot of fun. I'm into Pranky. I think Pranky's got a lot of potential for the future, and I'm totally bought into that character, and I'm enjoying Hyde Street. The all ages books that Peter J. Tomasi's doing, I thought Halo and Hornsby, very, very average. Not a whole lot of excitement in there. I didn't even feel the hook for the most part. I was like, oh, whatever. I'll read a couple more issues, but I might be out on that one. But I did think the Rockefellers had a lot of potential. The hook was there, and I think that one's going to be a fun book as well. So their batting average is so high compared to most other publishers that it's really awesome what Ghost Machine are doing as an imprint under Image Comics these days. And if you've missed out on Ghost Machine, don't miss out anymore. Go to your comic book shop. Go pick up some Rook Exodus, and you will absolutely be very, very satisfied. And, of course, Titan Comics with Conan the Barbarian. Like, who would have seen this coming? Jim Zub, treated kind of like an afterthought, kind of like a jabroni at Marvel Comics. Like, oh, we've got this miniseries. Or I'm sorry, we've got this ongoing series that we're 8 issues in on. The sales have deteriorated. We need to cancel the book, but we'd like to get another trade out of it. Jim Zub, come in and do the final 4 issues because Al Ewing needs to go launch another book. And they would always have him come in at the tail end and finish off something else that somebody else has kind of butchered. And he never really got his big break. He did do a Thunderbolts. Ended up being a miniseries, but I think it was supposed to be ongoing. That was actually pretty fun. But I don't think anybody got what the book was about. I don't think they got what he was trying to say there. It's very misconstrued, but You put him over at Titan Comics, you put him on Conan the Barbarian, and he did the very end of the Jason Aaron Conan the Barbarian run. Once again, the sales had deteriorated because Jason Aaron had worn out his welcome with Conan the Barbarian fans. They pull in Jim Zub. He gets to finish the thing off, start his own series, and it feels like I'm reading Robert E. Howard all over again. It feels like a true tribute to what Robert E. Howard created, back in the frickin' 30s, and it's absolutely amazing. If you're a Conan the Barbarian fan, today is a really good day. We just got the Battle of Blackstone event. That was awesome. They've already announced another event for 2025. We've got Savage Sword of Conan, which is the best value in all of comic books. I think it's 80 pages for $6. Not colored, magazine size format, really awesome stuff. Normally you get some Jim Zub stuff in there as well, whether it be prose or a story or even poetry, stuff kind of like that. Pat Zurcher's been doing a lot of Solomon Kane. And from what Jim Zub is selling out there are a lot of people that are going to be coming in for some miniseries with other Robert E. Howard characters, whether it be Dark Agnes or Solomon Kane or maybe Kroll or some of these really awesome Robert E. Howard characters. And they're going to flesh that thing out. It sounds like we're going to be getting even more Conan universe stuff within Titan next year. And I can't wait. It's been great all around. They haven't put out a bad book yet. Obviously, Mark Miller and Millerworld moving over to Dark Horse this year has been awesome once again. Not quite as exciting as 2023. I will admit that, because knowing that we're moving to big game and we're like, whoa, what's he doing with Nemesis here? This is definitely leading to something huge. And we end up getting this huge climactic kind of comic book event crossover that we'd never seen in Millerworld with freaking Pepe Larraz on art. And it looked great. Before that, you had like Jorge Jimenez on Nemesis, and that was great. And then this year has been really, really good as well. The Nemesis Rogues Gallery has been a lot of fun. Introduced a new comic book artist to me that I was unaware of. Really enjoyed that one. Prodigy Sons of Mars, good book. Not my favorite, but I'm really enjoying that one as well. Magic Order is a big deal. They're definitely building that one up really big. And if you're into Jupiter's Legacy, you get the finale going on right now, and it's a big conclusion, all that kind of stuff. And Millerworld is still going strong over at Dark Horse. I think they're doing a lot more reprints and collected editions over at Dark Horse. So you should be getting those soon as well. So I'm really loving Millerworld, and it sounds like he's got some pretty big plans for 2025 as well that I'm very excited to get into, because we've been reviewing the entire Millerworld catalog on the Patreon. If I haven't told you that, we got the Comics Guilds, and we're reviewing the entire Millerworld catalog, everything written by Mark Miller from beginning to end. And we are on MPH right now. We've made it through Kick-Ass 2. We've made it through the Secret Service. We've made it through all that kind of stuff. The Chrononauts, that was a lot of fun. Sean Gordon Murphy, then backed up by Eric Canetti. That was a good read, and we're having a lot of fun. But Millerworld keeps kicking ass and taking names. And then there's a couple of other books that if you like older characters, I mean, maybe not pulpy. I don't know if Space Ghost would be considered pulp. Flash Gordon certainly would be considered pulp. But we're getting awesome, really awesome comic books starring Space Ghost and Flash Gordon. Are you kidding me? One of them I could have predicted. Jeremy Adams has done an awesome job on Flash, doing an even better job on Green Lantern right now. And him on Flash Gordon with Will Conrad, you're like, yes, I'm going to eat this up. And it turns out it's kind of lived up to my own personal hype. Really loving that series. But Space Ghost by David Pepose, who had done nothing but shit the bed at Marvel Comics, especially with your Punisher series, your Savage Avengers, which were terrible. Space Ghost is awesome with Jonathan Lau. That art elevates everything. So you're even getting some more obscure stuff that maybe I wasn't an enormous fan of growing up. I saw the Flash Gordon movie, and I remember the Queen soundtrack, Flash, all that weird stuff. What a weird movie. The comic book's so much better. I remember seeing Space Ghost Coast to Coast, but I never really saw the cartoon. It turns out I'm a Space Ghost fan. So if you're looking for comic books and you're frustrated at Marvel, I feel your pain. If you're kind of frustrated at DC, you're like, hey, there's some good stuff here, but man, there's a lot of bad stuff too. I feel your pain. You got to go over to the indie comic books, because that is the only place to be right now. That's where almost all the quality is. I would say of all the comic book recommendations that Drew and I have done this year, I bet you 66 to 70% of all of them have been indie comic books. We will go multiple weeks in a row without recommending a Marvel book. We'll recommend one DC book 2 or 3 weeks in a row, but we're recommending at least 3 or 4 indie books every single week. And that's how strong it is right now in the indie scene. Unfortunately, As Marvel goes, as DC follows behind, goes the opportunity for indie comics to kind of blow up and get that bigger audience, where you have that success of like a Walking Dead or that really huge success like a Saga. It's not by accident. When those blew up, Marvel was doing really well at the time. It was bringing people into the comic book shops looking to explore and find new comic books because they were so excited about them at the time. And they realized, oh, wait, look, there's this awesome indie stuff right now. And it's unfortunate because Ghost Machine deserves more spotlight. It deserves more readers. It deserves more buzz. Energon has readers, but it deserves more readers because it's better than almost anything that Marvel or DC are putting out right now. The only book that stands up to these, in my opinion, that's ongoing right now is Green Lantern. I don't think Ultimate Spider-Man does. We don't know about Absolute Batman. We've only gotten 2 issues. But I think Green Lantern can hold its own against the Transformers, against a Rook Exodus, against a Conan the Barbarian, against a Space Ghost, Flash Gordon, and some of these other really great books like a Nemesis Rogues Gallery. But most of the other books at Marvel and DC just don't right now. And that's why I'm frustrated. That's why I want to pull my hair out. You want to see things get better, and you see the books are there for it to happen. But nobody's discovering them because Marvel has told everyone to leave because they don't care about what's in the book. They only care about variant covers right now. And I know this was a longer, I guess a long-winded rant kind of talking about the way where comic books are at the end of 2024 as we head into 2025. Didn't realize this was, we went 30 minutes. I'm sorry about that. But if you like what I'm doing here and you like the cut of my jib, and you like to support Think Critical YouTube and maybe get your hand on that Comics Guild and that entire Millerworld read-through, we've also done, what did we do? We did Planetary. We did Hawkman by Robert Venditti and Brian Hitch. We are doing Sleeper right now by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. You can get your access to all that kind of stuff. It's on Think Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. Hope to see you there. And I hope I didn't bore you with my long-winded 30-minute rant that was supposed to be 15. How did that end up being 30?